For my final project, I decided to teach my client how to dribble a soccer ball through a set of 4 cones and take a shot on target. For both the initial test and the transfer test, the cones were set the same distance apart. This motor skill would classify under the 2D section of Gentile's taxonomy, since the environment in both was stationary with intertrial variability, and for the action function, it would fall under body transport and object manipulation. My patient was a 21-year-old female with zero previous soccer training and zero training in ball control in general, putting her in the cognitive stage under Fitz and Posner's 3-stage model. The performance variables are the placement of the cones and that the patient must dribble through, and the angle at which the target sits with respect to the final cone that must be crossed before taking a shot. The distance between all the cones was the same as we timed the trials and must keep a consistent distance to avoid adding unnecessary error to the experiment. A transfer test was applied after some time practicing, where the positioning of the cones was changed and the angle at which the target stood with respect to the final cone was changed. If the experiment goes as intended, the time it takes for the patient to traverse the cones should decrease with an improvement in ball control, and the distance between the ball and the target, if missed, should decrease or the target should be struck. In this situation, the principle that the sensory motor system is characterized by kinematic redundancy, I believe, was particularly prominent due to how new the task was to the patient. During initial testing, she was very stiff and could not focus on much else other than kicking the ball in a given direction, thus freezing degrees of freedom in the process. In the final video, you can see she has started to free degrees of freedom through jogging, lifting her head to identify the next cone, and generally be more fluid with her dribbling motion. Through learning and practicing, she was able to take a complex task and practice it enough to where she could fluidly practice the motor skill and, given time, be able to implement new pieces to the skill by freeing degrees of freedom. Some challenges that came up were her ability to properly place her supporting foot when kicking a ball, and her swinging leg not being laterally rotated enough to make proper contact with the ball. Verbal cues such as place your support leg directly to the left of the ball, and to prepare for the shot, position the ball in front of you and to your right. To decrease the amount, you must open up your hip to make proper contact with the ball were used. She also had issues with turning left at a sharp angle, which I made sure to include in the transfer test. The way the improvement was assessed was by timing from the beginning of the course up until the patient reached the 4th and final cone, from where she would have to then take a shot on target. Secondly, the distance between the target and the ball would be measured unless the target is struck. In the first section, there was an improvement of almost 12 seconds from 19.32 seconds to 7.38 seconds at the transfer test. The second part of the skill showed improvement by the target being hit in the transfer test run as opposed to a 34.5-inch distance from the target in the initial run. Both showed improvement by substantial margins in their increased accuracy and speed, and could be improved and worked upon to increase consistency in the future as a third variable.